Limiting reactant. When we talk about something that limits, it is the one usually that will dictate the progress of something. In the case of a chemical reaction, when we talk about limiting substances or simply limiting reactants, these are the substances that are completely consumed or used up when the chemical reaction is complete. The amount of product that will be produced is dependent upon the amount of your limiting reactant. Anything that occurs in excess is what we call the excess reactant or the excess reagent. Now, to make this more clear, let's look at some basic examples of the concept of limiting reactants. Say, for example, if we have this burger, in order for us to make one burger, we need four ingredients. We need the pate, the buns, the cheese, and the tomato. Now, looking at the quantity of the reactants that you only have three pates and you have four buns and you have six cheese slices and you have seven tomatoes. Now, looking at it, because it's not really that you consume everything in here, you have to look at how many burgers can you make, putting in all the three ingredients necessary to create a burger. Now, looking at the product, you would know and you can also predict that you can only make three complete burgers. Three complete burgers because you know that the ingredient that's limiting the number of burgers you can make is the pate because you only have three of that. Whether or not you have plenty of cheese or buns or tomatoes, because you can only put one pate per burger because there are only three burgers you can make. And the rest of it are considered to be in excess. Similarly, if you have a shirt that says I love chemistry and you only have two pants for you to completely wear a shirt and a pants for your complete attire, that means you have the pants to be your limiting material here while the shirts are in excess. And to note that there will only be two shirts left after you pair up a shirt and a pants. So for this particular video, I'm gonna teach you how to determine which is the limiting and excess reactant in a given chemical reaction. And take note that we can still use the roadmap that I taught you in the previous video. So let's start with applying this in the context of chemistry. So this is a problem about the combustion of methane gas. Methane is CH4. It reacts with O2, forming your CO2 and water. Now, before you begin any calculations, please check whether your equation is balanced. Now, I want you to pause this video and check whether the equation is balanced or not. Now that you're convinced that the equation is balanced, then we can begin. Every time you're dealing with a limiting and excess reactant problem, you would expect that you will have two or more given values. That is, if you have two or more reactants in the problem. Because limiting and excess, that means you can't have one substance as the limiting and excess. There should be two or more reactants that will be considered to be your limiting and excess reactants in the reaction. So in this problem, you have 1.50 moles of methane gas that reacts with 2.50 moles of oxygen gas. Identify in these particular values what is the limiting and what is the excess reactant. Now, you would expect that there will be two sets of solution for this because you need to compare which of the two quantities will produce the lesser amount of product, which I'm going to show it to you. But how do we approach this problem now? We need to approach it using a certain conversion that we've learned before. Because you're given moles and moles for both of your reactants, we need simply to convert it to another mole because that another mole can be quantified later on. So it's simply a mole to mole problem. So I'm going to show it to you. We always begin with your given. So since there are two, let's start with your methane gas. So for our methane gas, we have 1.50 moles of CH4. And then we need to convert it to mole of another thing. Definitely not your oxygen gas, not another reactant, but you focus on any of the products. Since you have two products, you have two choices. Either you want to focus on CO2 or water. In this case, I want to focus on water. So if I focus on water, that means in my second example, it has to be water so I can compare it properly. So the mole ratio, because it's a mole to mole, that means we just need the mole ratio of CH4 and water, in which it's 1 is to 2. So we put 1 below so we can cancel it. So 1 mole of CH4, and of course the for water, it will be on top. So 2 moles of H2O. So in this case, you cancel out mole CH4. So it's going to be simply 1.50 times 2, which is expectedly you would get 3 moles of water. So what does this say? It means that for 150 moles of CH4, it will produce 3 moles of water. What if we now go to the second reactant? Our 2.50 mole of O2. So in our 2.50 mole of O2, and then convert it to mole water. It's always water because we began with water in the first reactant. That means you have to also have water so that you can compare. You cannot compare if you end up in different products. When we talk about limiting an excess reactant, you have to focus on only one substance in the product. So one, be consistent. So the ratio between water and your O2 is 2 is to 2. So we're going to put it here. So that's 2 moles of O2 below, because it is, we need to cancel out O2, and of course 2 moles of H2O above. So in this case, you cancel out mole O2, and that's simply the 2 over 2 is just 2 over 2 is just 1, so you'll get an answer of 2.50 moles of water. So in this case, we have two answers. Now, based on the answers, you would know that they will generate different amounts. So let's summarize this. So that means your 1.50 CH4 generates 3 moles of water, and your 2.50 moles of O2 produces 2.50 moles. So going back, sorry for the noise, it was my student. So 2.50 moles of O2 will produce 2.50 mole of water. So how do we choose between CH4 and O2? Remember that the limiting reactant will dictate the amount of product that is going to be produced. So that means the reactant that produces the lesser amount of product will be considered as your limiting reactant. So between CH4 and O2, obviously your O2 produces the lesser amount. So therefore, your limiting reactant LR is O2. And automatically, your ER is your CH4. Take note, it's reactant, not a product. So when you make a conclusion about your limiting reactant and your excess reactant, always go back to your reactants and look at your reactants and figure out what's the substance that's limiting and what's not, based on the common product's value that you get. So please pause this video, apply what is in this problem, write it down in your notes, and again, apply it in the exercises of your textbook so that you will learn more. Thank you so much. Watch out for the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.